expected, it was a bit of a rough week. I had numb feelings similar to what I had on 9/11, except on 9/11 I felt like I could do something. And so I went to the Covenant Retirement Center in Turlock, where I was a pastor in Turlock, and I was hanging out with old people to kind of just be a calming presence with people. They'd seen this loop of these twin towers falling over millions of times, I think, on the television. It was just going over and over again on TV, and people were not able to differentiate. Some of them were not able to differentiate between the fact that this was not just one thing happening, but they saw it as multiples, and it was terrifying for a lot of people. So I just hung out and talked with them and acted as a calming presence. This time around, I felt like I'm the one that needed to be calmed. I was kind of annoyed and a little bit angry about the way the whole thing had played out, and I did find a certain amount of calming, what I needed as I was working through the text for this week, which is Luke 21, 5 through 19, as Alex read for us. I'm going to read it again for you in the authorized Boydston paraphrase. Again, I want to commend to you the practice of creating a paraphrase as a part of your own Bible study habit. Even if you're just working with a verse or two verses at a time, it can be very helpful to create these kind of paraphrases. And my particular approach is to add a little bit of commentary into the story, interjected into the storyline by reading between the lines themselves, highlighting what was obviously intended or what was understood by the first readers, but not spelled out so directly that all of the 21st century readers are necessarily going to pick up on it. So here is Luke 21, 5 through 19. Some people were milling about outside the iconic temple, commenting on the beauty of the stones and the memorial artwork on the walls. Jesus chimed in, "Enjoy it all now, for the time is coming when the temple, symbol of Jewish life, will be in complete ruin. Every single stone will be knocked to the ground." Assuming that Jesus was talking about the end times, they asked him, "Teacher, when are you expecting this to happen? What are the signs of the impending doom?" Jesus replied, "Watch out. Don't be deceived. Many phonies will come along claiming my authority. They'll each be saying of themselves, 'I'm here. The time of the Messiah has arrived.' Such people are full of baloney and don't deserve your attention. Certainly, you shouldn't fall in line behind them. Also, you're going to hear about war and rebellion, but you need to maintain calm. These things aren't really signs of the imminent end. It's just nasty stuff that happens all the time." Then Jesus added, "Expect that nations and kingdoms will fight it out with each other. There are going to be disastrous earthquakes, as there was this morning in New Zealand. Did you hear that there was a 7-point something in New Zealand this morning? There will be disastrous earthquakes, destructive famines, and life-ending pandemics. You can also expect that there will be terrifying sights and great signs from heaven. Even more imminent will be the persecution. Because of your faith in me, you'll be harassed and arrested. You'll be handed over to the religious authorities and end up in prison. Then the government will be involved in your prosecution. This will be your chance to testify about me. Don't worry about coming up with some kind of prepared defense. As you're in the middle of it all, I'll give you irrefutable words and wisdom. However, some of your closest family members and friends will testify against you, and some of you will be executed. The haters will have a heyday with you. all because of your relationship with me. But I'm going to take care of you so that your life will be preserved. Not even the hairs of your head will become casualties. Hold fast, and even if you are killed, you will win eternal life. Now, this particular passage is a bit on the challenging side because of the way that the discussion jumps from observations about the temple to the destruction of the Jewish temple, which, by the way, took place in AD 70 at the hands of the Romans. And when Luke was writing or was compiling his gospel account, it was probably right about that time. It's even possible that the temple had already been destroyed when he was saying these things, when Luke was writing. And then that temple discussion morphs into a talk about the end times, some of the stuff that was happening in the world, but which is not necessarily a sign of the imminent end. There would be fake messiahs and natural disasters and wars and rebellion, and this is just kind of the normal stuff. And then that morphs into a discussion about persecution and the importance of holding fast during the difficult times. So it's jumping around a lot. And I see two verses as being kind of pivotal in the communication of Jesus' message here. Verse 9 is the first one. Also, you're going to hear about war and rebellion, but you need to maintain calm. But you need to maintain calm. There have been angry people marching in the streets this past week because they didn't like the election results. Then in some places, misogynists and racists have come out of the closet feeling empowered by this whole chain of events. There have been several post-election reports. For example, there was a guy with a Make America Great Again t-shirt riding on a public bus in Orange County in Southern California who was harassing a Mexican-American woman that he was sitting next to, and he was telling her that if she let him look down her shirt, he would save her from deportation once Trump took office. We're all about service. And then Wednesday at Baylor University, a black woman was pushed off the sidewalk by a white guy who said, "No," and then used the N-word, "allowed on the sidewalk." And when confronted by bystanders, his explanation was, "I'm just trying to make America great again." Now, equally unacceptable are the anti-Trump demonstrators who have been breaking windows and setting fires in cities across the country. Well, the point is that we can expect more of this craziness because there are lots of unhappy people. So here Jesus, when he says, stay calm and carry on. Stay calm and carry on. And then the second pivotal verse in this passage is verse 19, where Jesus says, hold fast, and even if you are killed, you will win eternal life. Staying calm does not imply passivity. Rather, it means that you don't panic when faced with adversity. And instead of panic, you hold fast. You stay the course with Jesus. And staying the course can at times mean calling out violence and racism and misogyny, naming them as the evil that they are. I'd summarize it this way. No matter what happens, you'll be okay if you stay calm and stay the course with Christ leading the way. And that's the key point this morning. No matter what happens, you'll be okay if you stay calm and stay the course with Christ leading the way. And this is true not just for the very end of times, but for the times leading up to the end of times as well. I mean, you might be dealing with some actually extreme garbage in your life right now, going through a rough patch, as we all do, and it's all hit the fan, and it's blowing at you, and there's no relief from it, and you're feeling overwhelmed, and you're feeling angry and unsure of what to do, and that makes you feel even more angry because you think you ought to know what to do in this because you're a grown-up, and you don't know what to do next. Here's the word: no matter what happens, you'll be okay if you stay calm and stay the course with Christ leading the way. There are immigrants and people of color who are feeling fear right now. And we can't just tell these neighbors that they are overreacting. I mean, that would be less than empathetic, and it would be dishonest as well. Some of those people, as illustrated by the incidents at Baylor and in Orange County, have already been targeted. Or maybe you've actually witnessed some atrocities yourself, maybe related to the election or maybe not, or something else. Things that need to be exposed, that need to be brought into the light and condemned. I'm very proud of the students at Baylor who have rallied to the aid of Natasha Nakama, who was the young woman in the middle of this incident there. And the administration has rallied on her behalf as well. No matter what happens, you will be okay if you stay calm and stay the course with Christ leading the way. Take appropriate action, but don't let fear take over. Don't let fear take over. So, how do we do this? How do we stay calm and maintain calm and steadiness in the midst of the storm? There are 4 quick words. The first one is this: attachment. Attachment. The closer you attach to Jesus, the closer you stick to Jesus during the tough times, the less you will be afraid. He is your Savior, and thus He is your calming presence. And all this apocalyptic stuff in the Bible sounds scary and it sounds startling unless you're walking close to Jesus. Unless you're walking close to Jesus. Attachment. The second word is alignment. Alignment. Keep your life and your mission aligned with Jesus. Keep your life and your mission aligned with Jesus. Don't let the drama derail you. Don't let the drama send you off in crazy directions. You know the signs: stay calm and carry on. That is to carry on with life, carry on with your work, carry on with your mission. And as a follower of Jesus, your work, your mission is summarized in that statement that we call the Jesus Creed, right? This is the Mark 12, 29 to 31 version of it, where Jesus answered and said, the most important command is this: listen, people of Israel, which was the first creed of Israel, the Shema. Listen, O people of Israel, the Lord our God is the only Lord. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. And then Jesus modifies it and adds, this is why we call it the Jesus Creed. He adds a second, he says, the second command is this: love your neighbor as you love yourself. There are no commands more important than these. So, go about living this out, loving God, loving neighbor, and you will be fine, is what Jesus is driving at. Then the third word is discernment. Discernment. Jesus replied, verse 8, watch out, don't be deceived. Many phonies will come along claiming my authority. They'll each be saying of themselves, I'm here. The time of the Messiah has arrived. Such people are full of baloney and don't deserve your attention. Certainly you shouldn't fall in line behind them. as a culture, we are fixated on celebrity leadership, which is actually quite dangerous. That is, we become susceptible to deception when we elevate leaders and we treat them as though they are rock stars, swooning and giving our minds over to whoever puts on the best show. Think about it. We just elected a reality show host to be the President of the United States. Whether he can actually lead or not, I don't know, but he can certainly entertain, and that's more of an indictment on us than on him. But that's kind of how the things are rolling these days. Substance for us has become less important than chest play. I heard a guy on the radio explaining why he voted for Donald Trump. He said that he didn't really care about Trump's policies or personal fallacies, but he really liked Trump's attitude. And his argument was that we need a new attitude in Washington to make America great again. And I'm not, don't misread me here, I'm not interested in dissing the president-elect. That's not at all my point. Rather, I'm talking about the explanation. I'm talking about the process that we have as a group, as a society, embraced, and that mental, emotional process, I believe, will ultimately make us vulnerable to deception when dangerous people come along. We're now well positioned to follow without questioning when somebody comes along and starts acting all messianic. Are we going to follow such a person because we like his or her attitude? Because his success in some area means he must be anointed by God? Deception doesn't happen in a single action or through a single display of some sort. It is a protracted process. And the deceiving leader takes time to convince himself that he is more than he is, and then people pick up on that confidence. And if it's presented in an entertaining enough way, we buy into it. The point is that we don't just have to watch out for fake leaders, but we also have to discern what we're going to focus on ourselves in terms of our own lives and how we process the world around us. I know a few guys that are really into biblical prophecy and end-time stuff, and they are trying to figure out the puzzle and what each of the historical events in the past and in the present mean. I know some guys who are really into this stuff. They're actually more into this than they are into Jesus himself, or into living the Jesus creed. I mean, do you see the absurdity of that? For some reason, we tend to get really consumed with what my friend and biblical theologian Jay Phelan calls catastrophic thinking. Catastrophic thinking. Every problem is seen as a crisis in this kind of a paradigm. Every incident points to the apocalyptic end of history. And this kind of stuff gets us all worked up into a lab. We just, And Jay says, we Christians are too often attracted to catastrophic thinking. We misunderstand our own biblical eschatology. Eschatology is the study of the end times, our own biblical eschatology, and imagine that disaster is always just around the corner. What if we took the prophetic warnings for what they are? Warnings, not inevitable outcomes. The prophets warned of what would happen if things did not change. Too much of our prophetic apocalyptic thinking these days can lead to passivity and despair. But we are called to live toward and for the new heavens and new earth, not to wait around to escape to heaven. And that segues nicely into word number 4, which is engagement. Engagement. To stay calm doesn't mean that we check out of the world just because we think that things are going from bad to worse. Rather, we stay the course, we carry on. I am introverted enough and have enough of a thought life. I have a very rich thought life. I can live in my head. And people like me are tempted to withdraw into our own worlds when things external in the external world get troubling enough. And my personal world is much more comfortable to me than the insanity of the external world. And that's why people like me especially need to be intentional about staying engaged in the external. We need to talk with our neighbors. We need to listen to those with whom we disagree. I've decided I will never unfriend any of my online acquaintances just because they're stupid or irrational or support the wrong candidate. If they start being abusive, they're out. But just for those reasons, I need to have those other voices in my life so that I can stay engaged with the world around me. And I need to be ready and I need to be willing to serve those people, even those who are totally unlike me. I need to be a servant of all. People who voted for the wrong candidate, people who have simplistic answers for complicated issues. You can't overcome hate by hating the haters or even by ignoring them. You have to engage them, but you engage them on a personal level, a rich level of non-attack, but of befriending. And of course, there is always going to be the danger of getting caught in the crossfire. Whenever you have any kinds of these relationships, whenever you put yourself out there into a dangerous spot. But Jesus says, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. No matter what happens to you, if they ruin your reputation, if they drive your blood pressure through the ceiling, don't worry about that. It will be okay if you stay calm and stay the course with Christ leading the way. And that is the good news. So, who would like to add a comment or ask a question and perhaps share a word about how you're seeing God at work in your life?
I have a question about kind of like the definition of okay. What you brought up kind of reminded me of Corrie ten Boom's statement that the safest place to be is in the center of God's will. And that's made me think a lot because Corrie ten Boom's life, obviously. And I just wonder if you have any thoughts on that or like any, on just mentally how to accept that okay might be a different definition and we want it.
I don't know if I could ever improve on Corrie ten Boom. Okay may mean that you're feeling stressed, but okay is the assurance that you know that things will not always be this way. Okay is hope. Okay is realizing hope and letting that hope take over as opposed to the fear. Yeah, okay is hope conquering fear. Am I being too abstract?
No, I think it's helpful. I mean, I think for me, I'm just like trying to look for a way to think about, I mean, this has been true in a lot of areas for me, not just this, but like just when, I don't know, I guess sometimes people have given platitudes about how God won't let this or that happen, and it happened. And by that, I'm definitely not talking about this week, but, so it's just hard to kind of look at that and go, okay, what does it mean when we say, you know, God is in control, things are going to be okay? You know, sometimes the outcome for children or other situations is not good.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that everything's immediately going to be okay, but it means that there's hope.
Verse 19, the last one, is what sums that up. Even if you are killed, which is a pretty negative outcome. Yeah, I mean, we all expect to die, but we don't expect we'll be killed. But even if that happened,
Yeah, and this is,
the picture is bigger.
the picture's bigger, and we're already dead. When we consider ourselves that we have died with Christ. For me, I agonize over the pain that other people feel.
Yeah.
And it triggers my empathy. Which I find causes me to be really uncomfortable. And I want to go out and fix it. I want to go out and fix everybody's problem because and not necessarily because I'm thinking of them so much, but I'm thinking about the pain that I'm feeling because they're feeling pain.
It's a very interesting question, and I kind of have a similar approach, but then I thought about it from my own experience. Sometimes I think it's okay. The optimistic side of me just came out, grew over, and after a moment, I thought, oh, that's not okay. And plan B, come on. So I have the fixing problem also. Right. Sometimes, it's not all the time. The bigger ones I cannot fix it at all. But was under my roof, plan B and then plan C. Right. But I told myself, it's okay. I mean, it is, that's right, it's the hope that get me going. I know that some of my friends, they just give up. That's okay, fine, I don't care. But that's not me. And I know it's not me too. Right? It's a very interesting point.
I think that some of that kind of hope manifests itself in investing in the future and maybe in unusual ways, doing an end run around the nonsense that's going around. So, for example, Martin Luther said, if I were to know that Christ is returning tomorrow, I would plant a tree today. The planting of the tree is a statement of the hope and the optimism about what it means for Christ to return. So I think you all ought to plant trees. You know, if you're feeling despair, if you're concerned over what's rolling your direction, plant a tree.
Grow something.
Grow something. And I'm not just necessarily talking about the garden.
Although that helps.
That helps a lot.
Related to that, I have one more question. I've been, a lot of people probably because I'm a therapist at heart and because I've been a therapist, I'm interacting with a lot of abuse victims this week that are hugely triggered and anticipating a lot of triggering in the future. And I'm just wondering what, if you have any thoughts on interacting with that and also on interacting with people who are, you know, devastated for whatever personal reasons like that.
I think we have to be honest with those people and tell them that there's dangerous possibility and that they need to be cautious, take precaution, position themselves in safe places as safe as they can be. But at the same time, they need to know that it's going to be okay. Not maybe necessarily in the short run, but in the long run. We have to do this kind of, we have to encourage people for the temporary and do it in a way that helps them see the long term. So when I'm talking to people that are having issues with abuse, I don't try to figure out so much. I'm not a therapist, so I don't have to figure out what's going on so much. My job is to strategize and say, how are we going to get you out of this situation, or how are we going to get you into a safe place for as quickly as possible. And so that's where that's where I would gravitate toward. When people say they're not feeling safe, we ask them, okay, so what can we do to get you into a safer place? How can, mentally as well as physically. How can we move you into a safer place? And actually let them help define what that is. What do you know that?